Hello, my curious archaeogastronomers. Tom Dinas here. This is the Delicious Legacy podcast, and I welcome you to another adventure through space and time. Today, I have a very special guest. Of course, I will have special guests, but with me, I've got Dr Simi Rezai-Ghassemi, and she's talking to me about her first book, Fermented Dairy of Central Asia, which is yet to be published. It's going to be out this Sunday, 15th of February. And she's a food anthropologist, educator and gardener specializing in the foodways of Turkic Eurasia. And as such, we will be talking about the fantastic products from this vast region, and we'll talk about some very interesting and not well known, to be honest, in the West, fermented products that kept people alive and fed through millennia. We will be exploring a very different culinary world indeed. I'll put all the contact details and where to find Simi and Simi's book and her kitchen on the show notes. And so, now, without further ado, let's dive in to my conversation with Dr. Simi. Hello, Simi. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really excited to talk to you because you have a new book out. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what is this forthcoming book?
Sure. So, yes, I am Dr. Simi Rezai-Ghassemi. I'm an expert in the foodways of the Turkic peoples of Central Asia. I was born in Tabriz, which is in the Azerbaijan region of Iran, and I grew up in both Iran and Cymru, as I like to call it, or Wales, and I think you have a Welsh connection.
Yeah, I do. I studied in North Wales in University of Bangor for 4 years.
Right. Well, I know it very well as I grew up in Menai Bridge, which you will know very well.
Yes, been a few times.
Yeah, I suppose we're very lucky to have been there because it is a beautiful part of the world. So Tabriz is in the northwest of Iran, and that is part of the Azerbaijan region in Iran. It's an old city and a major hub for culture, trade, politics, in the whole region, as it were. We have the largest covered bazaar in the world. And like the Welsh, we speak our mother tongue, Turki, a form of Turkish. And we also speak Farsi, the language of Iran. So how I've ended up, because now I'm in Bath, I came back to Bath, my alma mater, in 2008, and I started Simi's Kitchen in 2009. And since then, I've been teaching, researching and writing about the food of my heritage in the context of culture, history, language and law of that region.
Fantastic. So obviously now we have a lot of things here interconnected. Tabriz is in the northwest of Iran. There is also the Azerbaijani element. Culturally, you're Azerbaijani. The food there and the recipes and everything else, they have also elements from cultures around that area. Your book is called?
Yes, my book is called Fermented Dairy of Central Asia. So how it came to be is in 2023, I attended the Oxford Symposium of Food, which is an annual gathering of, and I'm sure they won't mind me calling them this, food geeks from around the world, where we share knowledge, food and wine. And I've made some wonderful friends and learned so much from the papers and also the people who attend. So each year there's a theme, and in 2023 it was portable food. And I chose to present a paper on gooroot, a dried, preserved, fermented dairy. It was off the back of that I was approached to write a book just about gooroot, and then that transformed and became my book, which is coming out in about 5 days, Fermented Dairy of Central Asia. And it covers the most popular fermented dairy of that region.
Indeed, yeah. We should have said, like, your book comes out really soon, and yeah, it's exciting. I had it I read it last week, and I love reading something in advance and something new and exciting.
Thank you.
And when we're talking about Central Asia, of course, this is a vast region. How did you choose all these different? Where did you find the inspiration and the foods to choose from?
Yeah, so earlier you asked me about Tabriz and food. So I'll start there and then I'll expand to the region as a whole. Tabriz, in that area of the world, shall we say, is rather like Lyon in France or Bologna in Italy.
Okay.
We are the food capital of our region, and people love our food and seek our food in that area. So I'm lucky that I come from that region. And also I come from a foodie family. So, everybody grows things and makes things from scratch, even now. Though that isn't the norm, just as in the West, in Iran, not everybody cooks from scratch or eats traditional food. Yes, you're quite right. Central Asia is a massive area. And if we imagine that my book covers the peoples and the cultures and the foods of the people from about Western China, as we know it now, to the Caucasus. So that's that huge part of the world, which, in this area is romanticized by the 19th century English name or term Silk Road and roads. So it's that whole vast region, though that's not quite right because most of the trade was done by sea, and it wasn't just silk. It was also knowledge, customs, food, and the exchange was in both directions because the Silk Road somehow implies just one direction. Anyway, it's a vast region and, of course, varied terrain and different peoples, languages, stories, and histories. But because I'm from the Azerbaijan region in Iran, I speak the two main languages of that region, which are based in Iranian languages and Turkic language.
Yeah. Fantastic. And of course, in the book, you start by mentioning like that there is an essential element to preserve the food of your mother tongue, basically. And why are we afraid it might be lost? Why is this an urgency on that respect? What are the dangers that surround the Azeri culture more broadly, basically? Could you expand a little bit on this?
Yes, certainly. So my aim in life, shall we say, and in this book also, is to preserve the foodways, rather through food, the culture, the language, history, stories, etc. And thank you for bringing this up, because it was in the early 20th century when there was lepricide and our books were burned and our language wasn't allowed to be written or taught. So I don't really have Azeri or Turkic language from my area archives to research. My research is through talking firsthand. It's an ethnographic approach, but also I look at travel logs, art, stories, and history to see if I can tie it all up. So yes, you're quite right. It is essential and necessary to do it now, more so because, as I've just mentioned previously, young people tend not to be that interested in old foods. And, there's TikTok and Instagram, and there is a lot of fusion food. So though there is a place for all food, and I don't think of things in terms of authentic, but there is a space for preserving the traditions and the knowledge and the wisdom. And that's where I fall. I would like to take an opportunity to learn and to preserve and share the wisdom of this area through food.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Could you give me a little bit of a background of the Azeri cuisine more broadly, and more specifically then about the dairy and the dairy produce from the area?
Yes. Of course, terrain dictates food wherever it's from. And similarly, where I'm specifically from, we're at high altitude, and because we're on tectonic plates, there are many hot springs and volcanoes, so the land is fecund. And I'm from a region where research shows us that viticulture, and preserving food, so winemaking, jam making, preserving, dairying. We have archaeological evidence to prove that this started in this area thousands of years ago. Now, this doesn't mean that similar things didn't happen elsewhere in the world, either before or simultaneously. It just means that I'm an expert in this area and I'm sharing my knowledge for that. And when I was researching the book, I did look into other cultures. It gave me an opportunity to look elsewhere. And I was fascinated, for example, we're talking about dairy, so I'll tell this story now. I realized that, for example, in South Africa, they have a yogurt style dairy product, which is known as amasi. And I actually came across it when I was reading The Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. And he too was a yogurt lover like me, or a fermented dairy lover like me, so much so that it almost got him his hiding place shown.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and it just goes to show, how embedded in our cultures and our foodways fermented dairy is. So to come back to Azerbaijan and our food, with the region being on important trade routes and also places which have been conquered over and over again, there are many influences from many places on the food of Azerbaijan. So, and what I'd say is the courtly food of the past is now what we deem Azeri food. So lots of delicious pillow, which are layered rice, and the layers are seasonal, shall we say. So in the winter, they're store-cupboard, dried herb, dried spices, raisins, lentils, etc. And in the summer, depending on the season, it's layered with carrots or it's layered with broad beans, etc. So there is a lot of that. My city is famous for meatballs.
Nice.
We have, which in other places they call kufte tabrizi, but in where I'm from, we don't call it tabrizi, we just say chufta. And chufta is also a way of saying somebody who is fat or round. So it is a very delicious, elaborate meatball, usually stuffed, or nowadays stuffed with barberries, walnuts, eggs, caramelized onions.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's quite something. We are also famous for our kebabs. And you can imagine this land that I've described and this background that I've spoken of, Iranian, Turkic, Mongol people. There was a lot of, shall we say, swords, and there was opportunity to put some meat on a sword and barbecue it or cook it over a fire. Hence, these kebabs have come about.
Brilliant. Thank you. Now, let's go back to your book, which is called, obviously, Fermented Dairy of Central Asia. And we can start talking about dairy itself, which you mention and you emphasize a lot in the book that has to do with women a lot. There's a link between women and dairy produce and being basically fed.
Yeah. So, I'm a woman myself, and going out and speaking to many women in tribes, villages, etc. for my research, I found that there was this beautiful sort of division of labor, shall we say. So the men looked after what I call the hardware. They looked after the sheep, they took them out to the pasture, they brought them back, they tended to them and where they lived and their security. And the women were the ones who milked the animals and then processed the milk. And of course, being a woman and an Azeri person telling this tale is also significant, as I'm from that culture. So access was easier for me. Not only that, I spoke the languages and I have similar sensibilities and mannerisms. So though they might have been shy with me or wary of me when I first arrived, because they were told this woman's come from Britain to do the study, later they found that actually we're very, very similar. And that was very touching for me, because whenever I left, they were like, "You're my sister now." And so they shared And they could see that I was quite knowledgeable myself because, as I say, I come from that sort of background, that it was easy for us to communicate and for them to be more open. So going back to, so the women milk and then they process the dairy. And this isn't something Central Asian. You'll see it everywhere in the world. It's usually the women who do that. And so one thing which, and I hope it comes across in the book, that I was utterly awestruck by was the importance of containers. It had never occurred to me, the concept of containing things.
Right.
So when in my book I read that, to begin with, we might have made little baskets or whatever from fibers, which don't exist because they go back to nature, they disintegrate. Anyway, it was that when you could contain something, you could eat it, for example, or drink it away from the source, or you could use your hands for something else. So, putting a child in a basket and carrying it on your back whilst you did something, or finding some berries and being able to pick enough, not just to eat there, but to take and share. That really, really touched me. Also, I find that is sort of the beginnings of my story towards dairy and fermentation, because we basically have milk either fresh or fermented. That's really it.
Yeah.
It's a highly unstable thing. When it comes out of the body, it will just naturally ferment because of all the live organisms inside the milk. And when they come into contact with air, a container, or anything, they transform. And what's fascinating is that this transformed thing is usually better for us than the milk itself, because as mammals, we can process dairy until we're weaned very comfortably and naturally. After that, there are many people with allergies or lactose intolerance. And that's perfectly normal, really, because after we've been weaned, we lose the enzymes that process lactose in milk. So it's just wonderful how these microorganisms, these bacteria, fungi, and yeasts transform milk into a variety of dairy products, and how this probably started by happenstance. And then we've got this variety of fermented dairy now.
So much variety, and basically so much. Basically, we can actually get a lot more nutrition from that stuff, really. And it's magical in a way.
You've hit the nail on the head. It truly is.
Yes.
It is important that we honor those who give us the milk or produce, and I dedicate the book to those creatures and humans, or should we say mammalians?
Yeah.
So I think that's very important.
Right. Okay. So let's move a little bit now. Milk becomes all these fermented products. We have butter and yogurt and so on. And in this vast region, you mentioned that in most Turkic and Iranian languages, there's no singular term for fermentation. Instead, people describe the outcome of each ferment. Can you expand a little here? Because that was a very lovely part of the book that really intrigued me.
Thank you. Yes. So as you say, we have a word for fermentation, and we all understand what that means, and it applies to all sorts of fruits and grains and foods, etc. But in my mother tongue, we don't have that unique word. In Iranian, they use the Arabic tahmir, and that becomes fermentation. But in my tongue, we either talk about the process or the result. And I'll use one of my favorite ferments, kefir. It is known as kefir here, but we say chafir, and it's just a difference in pronunciation there, which is something I also touch on in the book, that the variety of different ways of saying the same word depending on where you're from.
Yeah.
So in the case of chefir, can mean fun, pleasure.
Okay.
It can also mean to foam.
Right.
And pronounced slightly differently, it can be bloated. So did the word for kefir come from any of these? We don't know. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
And so, as you see, that is called kefir. Then there is yogurt. Yogurt has its own, and we'll talk about that later. So yeah, we don't have a generic term for something has fermented. Things go off, things go moldy, things turn, things arrive, things bloat, things foam, things give you pleasure. and that is how we name them.
Lovely. It says everything, basically, yeah. that is fermentation. Yeah, you can describe it with so many different ways, in a sense.
Yeah.
You are listening to the Delicious Legacy podcast by me, Tom Dinas. There's more to come after the break, and it gets better. One or two fermented products that are very unknown in the West, or at least in the Anglosphere, I don't know if in other places. It's something like you mentioned in the book quite a lot, gooroot and chortan. Those two things.
Yes, well pronounced. Chortan and gooroot, yes. So, okay, chortan and gooroot, let's dive straight in. First of all, what are they? These two are fermented dairy which is preserved. So in the most traditional form, back in the day, you would dry things because we're in the arid steppe. Drying was a method of preserving, or rather, should we say, it was a convenient method of preserving because that's the atmosphere you were in. So in the simple form, it is chortan, which, if you can imagine, is straining yogurt so that there's hardly any liquid in it. Then you can actually roll it in your hand. Rolling it in your hand into small balls and leaving it out covered so that there's not too much dust on it or creatures like little insects, and leaving it to dry. This was a way of having massive gluts of milk transformed into a product which was light, nutritious, and portable. So when you went from one pasture to another, you had this nutritious thing to take with you. And you could eat it by just biting into it or putting it with some water, maybe some herbs and some bits of bread, and making it into a soup or a meal of sorts.
I see. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So that is chortan, but generally speaking, in all the sources I looked at, it is also referred to as gooroot. And gooroot is pronounced and written differently in English depending on which area the person who is writing about it is telling us its story.
Right.
It can start with a Q, a G, a K. It can be gooroot or kurt. And I think to an extent this caused some confusion when non-natives went and studied it. Now, all these words I've used are in the Turkic languages. In Iran and in the Iranian languages, it is known as kashk. And in some historical documents, they said it was called kashk because it came from kish, which was a barley type element. But I think it is more to do with the word khushk. Khushk in Farsi languages is dry. And because gooroot means dry it in my mother tongue, and earlier we were talking about descriptive things. So here we are saying gooroot is a dried preserved dairy, and the word gooroot is an order, dry it.
All right.
So I think an Azeri person was speaking to an Iranian person and said, it's a dry thing. And they went, oh, khushk, which is Farsi for dry. And that became kashk.
Okay.
Now, the difference between chortan and gooroot is that to an Azeri, you can only call something gooroot if it is made the way I'm about to tell you. So for an Azari, the only thing we consider as gooroot is when you take full-fat milk, turn it into yogurt, churn that yogurt into butter, so you have cultured butter. Once you've taken the butter out, you're left with the whey. That whey is then boiled. And once it starts boiling, you see these little white bits appear in it. Those are the solid protein particles. Then those are collected and strained. And it is that strained thing that is then balled and put out in the sun to dry. And that is gooroot. So gooroot isn't dried yogurt.
Not anymore,
but
yeah.
The buttermilk.
Yeah, so basically you're kind of using all the different stages of the product for different things.
Correct.
And then
nothing would have been wasted. And it goes one step further.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the next step is, once you have the whey from, collecting the gooroot, you then boil that down, rather like maple syrup or something, until it is this thick, sticky paste. And that, in my mother tongue, is called gara gooroot. And gara is the word for black. So that is black gooroot. And I couldn't find an equivalent in any other language for gara gooroot, which further makes me feel this is really a Turkic thing and from that Turkic tradition.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen that in other Turkic Central Asian cultures, or is it specifically only Azerbaijani?
Well, I have seen it in the broader region, because Azerbaijan is quite small.
Yeah.
But, for example, towards Afghanistan and in Iran and all that area. But no, not further afield. And it's a super sour thing. Really, really sour. And what you use it like you would lemon juice or vinegar or something at the end of cooking to sour things. But it just goes to show how A, nothing was wasted, B, the ingenuity to do these things, and C, how important it was to collect the milk in the season it was available, and then reduce it to a manageable thing that could keep you going in the summer months.
Of course.
These are protein-packed foods. They are full of fat, and they also have lots and lots of calcium. And just staying with gooroot, so whilst writing the book, I discovered that in other cultures, they eat the balls as snacks. Right. And in places like Kazakhstan, in the bazaar, you see these beautiful mounds of colourful gooroot. Some of them have got paprika in them, some of them have got herbs in them, so they're different colours. And they eat them like we would crisps. Seriously, and it's quite a healthy, nutritious little bomb, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
So, this is how they eat it. But in Iran, and in my area of Iran, we only use it in cooking as an ingredient. So it is something that is either the base of a dish, like a soup, where it has onions, garlic, mint, walnuts, and or it is something that you add to other dishes to bring an animal-y funk. Because you can imagine, with it being fermented and dried, and it's kept for a long while, it does become quite funky.
Yeah. So how does it taste in the soup? Let's bring that animal funky thing that you say. And in the bazaars in Kazakhstan, when they eat it like a snack, how does that taste? What are the flavor profiles on these two things?
So, obviously the ones which are flavored, they are, imagine something like a blue cheese, a strong blue cheese. That sort of animal-y funk, with maybe either mint or thyme or savoury. So the green ones might taste like that. Or you might have ones, which I said, with chili or paprika or something, which are quite hot as well.
Nice.
That's the flavoured ones. The non-flavoured ones, the ones that we use in Iran, that we call gooroot and kashk in Farsi, those are more like, I would say the closest thing I can come to it is like a blue cheese, really. It's that sort of funky flavor.
I mean, I suppose, in the West, in Europe, we use blue cheese for soups, so you have Stilton and broccoli soup or whatever. So I guess it brings the same kind of aromas. It's fascinating because obviously we don't have something similar, so you have to find ways to compare it with something that we know and understand, and understand the aromas and the flavor profiles and how does it taste. I think this animal funkiness that you describe, it kind of makes it more real, basically, because just saying
I mean, there's another way that I put it in the book as well, that some of the people who've traveled to the region and have never had these things before, or were unfamiliar with these flavors, when they have had the very, shall we say, very, very sort of authentic, deep in the mountains in Mongolia or Central Asia, they've said it tastes like the animal or the barnyard.
Yes.
So some of them are quite strong. And of course, in all cultures, we have foods which to other cultures may seem strong or unpleasant. But that is because of where we're from and how we know it. But I have yet to meet anyone who didn't like my Iranian dish kashkebadim, John, which is aubergines made with gooroot or kashk. And it was the first dish I made when I started Simi's Kitchen. And I happened to I presented a paper on kashk or gooroot, and now we're talking about it because of all that. So I owe this little girl quite a lot.
Brilliant.
So we've talked about the flavor, etc., of gooroot. And I started it by saying that I wrote it because it was a portable food. Now, it was carried in saddlebags. So it is said that Genghis Khan and the Mughals enjoyed it and used it on their, shall we say, escapades around my area and the damage they did in my country. We have a lot to owe for them as well. Anyway, it because of its portability and its nutritious quality, and as I said, you didn't need much of a kitchen to transform it into a food. You just arrive by a river, make a fire, warm the water, put the gooroot in and drink it or eat it, and that was food. I'm told, and I have read, that cosmonauts flying out of Baikonur would have taken it to space. So, it is very portable.
It is.
Besides that, the most fascinating thing I found was the beauty of, and I'm so sorry, I'm probably going to ruin how I'm saying it, Xiaohe.
A little interjection here to talk about this magnificent mummy, which is one of the most recently unearthed ones, the Beauty of Xiaohe, spelled Xiaohe, and I'll put a link in the show notes. And it was recovered from the Ordex necropolis, far out in the desert at a small river cemetery. And this is a dried up river basin now, and it was recovered in early 21st century. And there were many mummies found in the desert there, in the Tarim Basin, in different locations, scattered all over the place. This particular one, it's same period as other mummies, another mummy called the Beauty of Lulan, and we're talking about 1800 to 1500 BCE, and it's very extremely well preserved. It was wrapped in a white woolen cloak and has a feather hat, and wears a necklace made of cheese, basically. The archaeologists found pebble-sized hunks of some yellowish substance, and they analyzed it, and it was basically this type of dried dairy product, basically, both made from the DNA revealed cow's DNA and goat DNA. And an analysis of the proteins found in that necklace seems to reveal the microbe which is responsible for producing kefir, the fermented milk product that we will talk on this episode as well. So this milk points also to the mingling of ancient peoples. As I said, the two samples from contain DNA from cows and DNA from goats, distinctive genetic material, and the goat has similar DNA to other ancient Central Asian goat samples, domesticated goat that is. So it seems people were on the move, and kefir-like products and fermented dairy products spread through this part of the world in a very, very wide area during this Bronze Age. All these bodies from all these mummies were preserved in these dry, cold conditions. And it seems to be this Tarim Basin, one of the most remote, far from the oceans and the seas, and the last populated places on Earth, actually. Like before 2000 BC, we have no evidence of permanent settlements there. And only from the Bronze Age afterwards, we have the region becoming a key locus interaction between Western and Eastern Eurasia. And of course, the last 50, 60 years or so, hundreds of mummies have been recovered from the Tarim Basin, especially recently. And from different ages, we're talking about from Bronze Age, and there are remains of people such as the witches of Subeshi, which are from the 4th century BCE. Anyway, back to our story with Simi.
This mummy
Yeah.
she's almost 4,000 years old. She was found in, I think, 2003 in Xinjiang province in China. And she had, they say, the description, I've looked at pictures, it's true. She has long eyelashes, reddish brown hair, and is said to have an enigmatic smile too.
Right.
Anyway, she was preserved to perfection, as I've previously said, also in the arid saline region. Anyway, she was in a boat-shaped coffin, which may be because they were of a water culture. And she had a white wool cloak, feathers in her cap, beautiful boots, and a necklace of dairy beads.
Preserved, dried.
Yeah. So I am reading this and looking into it and the scientific studies that have been done. They called it, in the papers that I read, a necklace of cheese. But I'm a bit of a pedant, and because I read that the analysis of the material didn't show any rennet, I wrote to the Max Planck Institute to ask to see if that was chortan or gooroot.
I see.
So I'm still waiting for a reply. If anyone from the Max Planck Institute is listening right now, please feel free to put me out of my misery. But I think I'm right. Only because it is culturally so. It is of the area. They didn't dry rennet-based stuff, but they did dry and make chortan and gooroot. Well, it is most likely.
That'll be very fascinating thing. Like, we have a product here that is used for thousands of years. We go from like 2,000-3,000 years ago, as you say, to today, through a vast area, thousands of square kilometers, and also we're going into space. We have a transgalactic...
from beneath the sands of the desert, all the way into space. Yes. And in fact, the subtitle for my paper was From Steppe to Space. It's the portable power of gooroot. That's the paper I presented.
It's a truly universal food then, with the truest sense of universe.
Yeah, as you said, intergalactic. And that's another word I'd like to come back to later.
Yes. And we can come to it now, actually.
Should we talk about it now, because it's so cute?
Yeah.
Right. So you will have to correct my pronunciation if I get any of this wrong. Now, again, whilst looking at various cultures and also milk, dairy, etc., I was actually captivated by this. In one single paper, which hasn't been studied since, I read that there's a very small chance that the bacteria which first started yogurt could have been from snowdrops. Now, as a galanthophile
Yeah.
from Azerbaijan, this just made my heart sing. And my hand is on my heart, and I'm sorry if I hit my microphone there. Anyhow, so feel free to correct me as we go along. Now, gala is milk
In Greek.
in your language.
Yeah.
Yes. And it is said that the word galaxy is because Hera, the goddess's milk, spilled and went out into the universe.
Indeed, yeah. Another little interjection here to explain the myth. In the ancient Greek myth of how the galaxy was created, literally galaxy, the Milky Way or the Milky Circle, in a sense, what the ancient Greeks tried to explain was that basically once Heracles or Hercules was being born, Zeus, the father of the gods and the father of Heracles, or his son Hermes, took the infant and brought him to Hera, the mother of the gods and wife of Zeus, who at that point she was sleeping, and they placed him to her breast so that he could suckle from her. Once Hera awoke and understood the situation, the trick that it was played at her, she pushed the baby away, and her unexpressed milk was sprayed all over the heavens, and that's how the Milky Way was created.
And we have the flower, snowdrop, which is galanthus, or milk flower. And I've just said I'm a galanthophile, a snowdrop lover. So to think that my favourite fermented dairy is from one of my favourite flowers, which happens to be from the area I'm from, made me a very, very happy researcher.
Yeah, I mean, it just gave me goosebumps right now thinking about the whole connection with the little snowdrop flower from your mountains to making yogurt. Yeah, and you actually mentioned that in the book, and you...
Well, I make up a story, and I declare it is a story. I put it out there as a scenario of a young girl who's collected milk, who may have picked snowdrops before or touched, or the milk somehow comes into contact with it. And earlier I also talked about containers. So with regard to yogurt, for example, this dairy product, one of the most important things you need to do when making yogurt is make sure you keep a little bit behind.
Of course.
Because there's the process of backslopping. Sounds horrible, but it basically means you take some yogurt, and you take some milk and you put the two together in particular temperatures, and then the bacteria start to get down and jiggly and make you transform your milk into yogurt.
Brilliant.
So, this, just to think that somebody may have picked some flowers or touched, or the inside of the container had... Or even the
flowers previously, or whatever. Yeah, I mean this.
Yeah, or even the others had gone over a field of snowdrops and touched them, and that. Why not? We don't know where they started, so why not? Why can't I have my fun?
Yeah.
So and just to go back to backslopping, of course, and containers, they're all somehow and beautifully related. So you have a container. It is a precious thing. You probably just have the one or two. And we also talked about magic. You contain the milk you've taken from an animal. You leave it, you come back, and it has changed form. It looks, smells, and has a different texture to the thing you had before. Now you can imagine it could have been deemed as magic.
Yeah.
Especially if it made this thing preservable and more nutritious.
Yeah, like a gift from God or the gods.
Exactly. Yeah. So in every way one looks at it, it is fascinating.
You are listening to the Delicious Legacy podcast by me, Tom Dinas. There's more to come after the break, and it gets better. You also have a long a chapter about yogurt, basically, in the book. And yeah, it's, again, It's one thing that we kind of take for granted today, yogurt. It's everywhere in the supermarkets. But as a product of fermentation or something that people used it to preserve excess milk. And it's very nutritious and, again, very useful for humanity for thousands of years. Yeah.
So with regard to yogurt, I mean, it is the most studied of all the fermented dairies and most sort of known. Cheese isn't taken in the same way as yogurt as a fermented dairy, but that also is a fermented dairy. So yes, yogurt is big business. It's big industry, very popular, correctly, as you say, very nutritious and with increased sort of, should we say, trend in food of fermenting and also gut and all this new gut-related food. It is one of the most important foods with probiotics.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing I found funny about yogurt is there are actually debates or disputes over whether you are from America or Europe on how you even spell it. And that is a Romanized word or a transliterated word. So you can imagine when I was looking at the names of things in this vast region with different dialects and ways of saying words, how it gets. But I love how passionate people are about it. And it is an extremely important food. And when we first came to the UK, the only yogurt you could have was this pink stuff called ski.
Right.
And my parents, eventually, when we went to visit cousins in Birmingham, they got some yogurt. And, that was one of the most precious things Mum had in the kitchen because she used to keep it going with her back slopping to make us yogurt.
Fantastic.
So I suppose that the heart of my book is about how milk becomes culture. And not just in the way of food, but what we have now as our culture, as our human culture.
Fantastic. That's lovely. Moving on, let's mention a little bit kumis here, that excellent, which is an excellent example of a yeast-driven fermentation. And we have something unique here. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so kumis we know less about here, but I wouldn't be surprised if that too soon becomes something that people enjoy all over the world. So it is made with mare's milk. Not horses milk people, not horses milk mares. And may I take this opportunity to also acknowledge that next week is Chinese New Year and it's the year of the fire horse.
How
and wish people
amazing.
Hei Fa Choi and to us all as we need it right now. So yes, horses are quite amazing animals. And as you know, they are said to have migrated to other places from this part of the world. Initially, we just ate them. So we hunted them and ate them. Later, we found what wonderful creatures they are, and they became companions and things which helped us transport ourselves and obviously knowledge, etc., around the world a little bit faster. So it's understandable that the animal was used in its life, and then it was either eaten or blood was drawn from it, and eventually it was milked. Now, the milk from horses has the highest amount of lactose. It's very, very sweet, and if drunk as is, can cause digestive issues.
Okay.
It acts like a laxative. Now, it's more digestible when it is fermented. And in this case, the yeast and the bacteria that ferment it turn it into kumis. And kumis is this sour, frothy, slightly alcoholic, carbonated drink. Just to get the milk out of a mare is hard enough.
Right.
And then there's the process of making kumis. Traditionally, it's a long, drawn-out, stirring for days, releasing the gas so it doesn't explode drink. But nowadays, people do make it with cow or goat milk, and they use things like yogurt or kefir to inoculate it, but that isn't actually kumis.
Okay.
Kumis is made with mare's milk and a particular host of bacteria and yeast.
So I guess being mildly alcoholic, being difficult to drown as a traditional drink, it used to be more of a ceremony thing. People used it more like on special occasions. Do you know?
There are a variety of kumis, and as such, and of course, many cultures lay claim to every one of these things that we have said. One area will say yogurt is ours, another will fight kefir is ours, another will fight kumis is ours. For example, it is said that the city of Bishkek is named after the paddle that is used to make kumis. And so that's where it started, etc. But going back to your point about it being used for ceremony, yes, for sure. And of course, the best and the finest, because all these foods are also part of our tradition of welcoming guests.
Yeah.
So the best and finest of the yogurt, the kefir, the kumis, it wouldn't matter, would have been offered to guests. And so probably the finest kumis would be offered to guests. There is also some talk in some books by travellers to the area of gara kumis. And we've earlier said gara means black, and that's from a black mare. And that's supposed to be super special, but I think that's more to do with the sort of the rarity of that type of animal rather than the kumis it creates.
Yeah.
All these foods have been used as medicine. The stronger, the fattier ones for people who are ill, infirmed, post giving birth, so new mothers. With kumis, yes, it would have been used in ceremonies. It would have been used probably after battles, but the Mongols didn't approve of being drunk. So, and now there are many regions which are Islamic and Muslim, so they wouldn't have alcohol now in those regions, but previously they would have.
Yeah, for sure. Out of curiosity, have you ever tried it?
No. No.
So, please, let's talk a little bit about kefir here to round up our conversation, because kefir is also featured in the book, and it's also another fermented product, and it's very, very much in vogue in the West nowadays.
Yeah, well, I could talk for hours about chafir or kefir, but I shall exercise some restraint. So, yes, this is a SCOBY, so a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeasts. And people may relate scobies to kombucha, and they may have seen this gelatinous type thing that sits in the bottom of a liquid, and it's referred to as a mother. So kefir is also something like that, but not quite. And there are two types, milk kefir, water kefir. Obviously, I am talking about milk kefir. Now, these are gelatinous little blobs. Imagine chopping up a cauliflower, how it would look if it was slightly gelatinous.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and those little grains, as they are known, those blobs, are called kefir or kefir grains. And the resulting product is called kefir. So the both things are that. And it has a cute little story of how it came out and now has become fashion here, only because you mentioned it was trendy in the West. So it is said that a beautiful princess was sent from Russia to the Caucasus to bring back this magical substance. And she obviously wooed with all her graces and got the grains to Russia, and from Russia they moved throughout the world. And it is probably the simplest fermented dairy you can make. You get a jar of milk, you put the grains in, and you wait. After an hour, maybe a day or so, you'll start to see bubbles. And then depending on your palate, you can have it sooner when the milk has been fermented and it is mild.
Yeah.
Or you can leave it a while and it becomes funkier as it goes along. It becomes more sour and more bubbly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how you make the product and the kefir.
Simple and very nutritious and something that
it's the most nutritious of all the fermented dairies. It has millions of good stuff in it.
Yeah.
Micronutrients, things which are good for our overall well-being, because increasingly they're finding that there's links between the gut and the brain. So these are not only good for our bodies, our physical bodies. And by the way, as I see in the book, I see myself as a hotel for bacteria. And I try and make my hotel as suitable a landing place for the bacteria and yeasts that I feed it. And that apparently affects our mood, our energy levels, and all sorts.
Exactly.
So it's a magical thing, and do have it. And I have to tell you and your readers, because this is my first interview about the book, so I'm terribly excited. It's what I did was last year when I went back to Iran, I took some with me.
Nice.
For my mum, of my grains. And when I put them into the milk, I just couldn't help it. There were tears rolling down my cheeks. And it was almost as if the kefir was saying, I've come back home. I can't describe it. I'm not really a very sentimental person, and I don't cry that much. So it was quite shocking for my mum, actually. But yeah, that's what happened. Then, when I left, about a couple of weeks later, my mother phoned and we were talking. And she said, I don't know why, but my kefir's gone a bit funny. And she said, I thought maybe it's because she's missing you. So
that's very sweet.
I have a particular bond with my kefir grains, and it's a delight for me to be able to share them with friends and family.
Of course, yeah, it's the best thing you can do. And as you said before, like hospitality and guests and family, everybody, like these products are to be shared with the people, with everybody. Yes. It's fantastic to talk to you. And to round up our conversation here a little bit, tell me, when is the book out?
Yeah, and the book's out this weekend, 15th of February, which happens to be my dad's birthday as well, my late father's birthday. So, I am looking forward to sharing my findings.
And where people can find you?
Well, sure. So I'm at Simi's Kitchen on Instagram. And I think if you put Simi's Kitchen Bath, I come up for my website. I'm also on Substack, and that is Simi's Azerbaijani Food Ways.
Brilliant.
And the book's available on Amazon, in good bookshops, and the Equinox, who are my publisher, Equinox website.
Yeah, I think we should encourage people to get from there or from bookshops.
Thank you very much.
It's a fascinating book, obviously, with so much information about all this fermented dairy we don't really know about. And of course, let me mention here that you have recipes about certain things we can make ourselves, and you guide us on how to make yogurt and kefir, and you have lots of things there as well. If we want to make it by ourselves at our homes.
Yeah.
And that's great as well. That's also great. And finally, I would love if you can tell me the top 3 fermented products that you cannot live without.
I suppose you can guess. Yogurt, kefir, and cheese.
Cheese, of course.
Yes. And you?
I would go for cheese. First of all, and yogurt is a must. Like, I love yogurt, and I think kefir. I have to say kefir. Yes,
cool. Cool. Nice.
So, yeah, thank you so much for coming to The Delicious Legacy. And thanks for spending all this time explaining about the foods of your region and Central Asia and more in general. And I wish all the best with the book.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much for having me on The Delicious Legacy. I really enjoy your program, so it's been a privilege to be on your show. Thank you.
Thanks. Great. And that's it. Thanks to Simi for her delightful conversation. And don't forget to buy her book. It's out on Sunday, 15th of February on all good bookshops. The book is called The Fermented Dairy of Central Asia from Equinox. And this is it for this week. Thanks for listening. Remember to like, subscribe, wherever you get your podcast from, and rate and review this episode, which is a very, very important thing to do. Now, if you want to support the podcast, you can become Patreon member from $3 a month. Just go to www.patreon.com/The Delicious Legacy, and from there, very easily, you can become a member and support the podcast, and also get the podcasts early and ad-free with extra content, of course. You've been listening to The Delicious Legacy podcast with me, Tom Dinas. I'll be back next week again with some more tantalizing archaeogastronomical adventures. Bye!